They came like a steel tsunami, 50 tanks roaring across open fields, armored personnel carriers grinding forward, and hundreds of troops ready to strike deep into Ukrainian territory. From the Black Sea, Chinese landing craft sliced through the waves, carrying Marines who expected little resistance. On paper, it was unstoppable. But what if the seemingly invincible force you feared most was walking straight into a trap? Imagine precision drones mapping every move, hidden artillery waiting in silence, and soldiers who knew exactly when and where to strike. In the next few minutes, you're about to see a battle unfold that proves size and firepower aren't always enough. Ukraine's ingenuity, speed, and relentless strategy would turn this fearsome advance into chaos before the first coordinated salvo was even fired. The morning was deceptively quiet. On the horizon, Russian T-90M tanks rumbled forward, their engines echoing across farmland, flanked by armored personnel carriers carrying hundreds of troops. From the south, Chinese amphibious ships cut through the Black Sea, landing craft poised to unleash Marines onto exposed beaches. On paper, it looked unstoppable. But Ukraine wasn't waiting to meet them head-on. High above, drones hummed silently, weaving between tree lines and low ridges, carrying high-resolution cameras and live feeds directly to underground command centers. Every tank, every supply truck, every armored vehicle was tracked, tagged, and analyzed. The enemy didn't know the truth. The corridors that looked wide open were anything but. Mines lay hidden beneath thin layers of soil, artillery dug in behind tree lanes, and mechanized brigades waited in irrigation ditches. Even suicide drones were staged, batteries warmed, engines whispering in the night. Ukraine's strategy was simple. Lure the invaders in. Let them believe they had a clear path, a safe corridor to advance. Make them confident, because confidence would be their undoing. In the command center, officers studied the feeds like chess masters plotting 10 moves ahead. Each drone feed, each thermal outline told a story of vulnerability, but it was all a carefully crafted illusion. By the time the first tanks rolled into the open fields, the trap would already be set. From the north, hidden mine robots lurked, ready to strike. From the south, precision drones hovered above the landing craft, ready to ignite chaos. And from every angle, artillery and mechanized forces waited, silent but deadly. In those tense minutes, the battlefield held its breath. No explosions yet, no engines roaring, just the quiet hum of technology and the faint rustle of soldiers in hiding. It was a calm so deliberate, so unnatural, that it made the approaching invaders feel safe. Just before the storm hit, the first cracks appeared in the enemy's advance before they even knew what hit them. Up north, Russian UR-77 mine-clearing vehicles fired explosive charges down the supposedly clear lanes, but the soil remained deceptively calm. The path seemed open, perfect for a confident armored column. And that was exactly what Ukraine wanted them to believe. As the lead T-90M tanks rolled forward, the trap snapped shut. Mine robots no larger than a toolbox surged from concealed ditches, each carrying charges capable of slicing through over 2 feet of armor. The first hit blew the turret of a lead tank high into the air. Seconds later, consecutive tanks were crippled, engines burning, crews scrambling, and the once organized column dissolved into chaos. Meanwhile, to the south, Chinese landing craft closed in on Mariupol, ready to unleash Marines onto what should have been uncontested beaches. But the waters were anything but safe. Ukrainian Berar TB2 drones hovered silently at 10,000 feet, heat signatures locked on the lead vessels. Missiles struck without warning, punching through bow ramps, sending armored vehicles into the surf like broken toys. Black smoke rose into the morning sky as Marines scrambled for cover, trapped on decks now burning and exposed. Panic spread quickly. In the north, Wagner mercenaries collided in cramped corridors. Supply lines ignited. And above it all, the first wave of fighter jets screamed overhead, attempting to shield the shattered advance. But Ukraine's defenses were already in motion. MiG-29s and Su-27s roared to intercept, while hidden air defense systems tracked and destroyed incoming threats with precision. Within minutes, the invaders' confidence evaporated. What had begun as a coordinated strike turned into a chaotic nightmare. Tanks were burning, ships were aflame, and soldiers were pinned on every front. The battlefield that had looked like open territory was now a cage, and the hunters had become the hunted. And yet, this was only the beginning. The skies and coastlines were just the opening act, as Ukraine's layered traps and coordinated strikes were about to tighten the noose even further. Above the Black Sea, the battle erupted in the sky. Chinese J-15 fighter jets screamed across the dawn, afterburners glowing orange against the haze, diving low to shield the crippled landing forces. But Ukraine was ready. From concealed air bases, MiG-29s and Su-27s surged into the fight, their engines roaring like predators descending on a kill. Missiles lit the horizon, streaking toward the intruders, twisting through smoke and fire from burning ships below. Dogfights erupted above the waves, jets twisting and turning, chasing each other through clouds of shrapnel. Within minutes, 2 J-15s spiraled into flames, crashing into the sea. Ukrainian drones circled high, marking targets for ground-based air defense batteries. Bukhim-1 launchers and hidden NASAMS units locked onto incoming fighters, shooting down one plane after another in precision arcs of fire. In moments, the skies were littered with wreckage, smoke curling from the water below. The chaos on the ground mirrored the destruction above. Wagner convoys tried to regroup after mine robot ambushes, only to be hit by kamikaze drones racing low at over 100 miles per hour. Fuel trucks exploded, ammunition carriers ignited, and thick black smoke choked the battlefield. Visibility vanished, panic spread, and armored formations collided with one another in confusion. Above the northern front, anti-aircraft tracers stitched the sky like molten threads, while Bayraktar drones marked every vulnerable target. The combination of air and ground defenses turned the horizon into a deadly crossfire. Every advance by the invaders met immediate retaliation. Precision strikes that shredded their formations, leaving soldiers scrambling for cover. In less than half an hour, what had begun as a calculated advance became a chaotic nightmare for the attackers. Superior firepower meant nothing against a layered, coordinated defense. The invaders were bleeding forces on every front, and Ukraine's traps, both in the sky and on the ground, were just beginning to tighten. And yet, the deadliest phase was still to come. The battlefield, both air and land, had been softened, but the final counterattack would turn disarray into complete annihilation. With the skies contested and chaos spreading, Ukraine's ground forces struck with deadly precision. From hidden tree lines, mechanized brigades surged forward, engines muffled, armor gleaming through the smoke. Infantry on dirt bikes weaved between burning tanks, striking exposed flanks with RPGs and portable anti-tank missiles. Every attack was calculated, every movement choreographed to trap the enemy in a steel vice. The northern corridor became a nightmare for Russian forces. Lead T-90MS were immobilized by mine robots, and as survivors tried to regroup, Ukrainian engineers triggered a second, hidden mine belt beneath what seemed like open escape routes. Explosions ripped through BMPs and supply trucks, tossing turrets and sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Vehicles collided, fuel tanks ignited, and panic spread like wildfire. To the south, Chinese Marines pinned on the beaches faced an equally deadly counterattack. Ukrainian special forces emerged from concealed bunkers and sand dunes, firing javelins and anti-tank missiles at near point-blank range. Snipers on elevated dunes picked off Marines as they scrambled for cover. Kamikaze drones disabled radar and communication nodes, leaving the invaders blind, exposed, and unable to call for support. The once confident amphibious strike had collapsed into a massacre before the first wave even fully landed. Meanwhile, Oplot T-84 tanks thundered across open fields, blocking roads and sealing escape routes. Every armored vehicle trapped in the north and south faced a coordinated onslaught. Infantry striking from cover, bikers darting across flanks, artillery raining GPS-guided shells into their positions. Chaos consumed the battlefield as fuel trucks exploded, supply lines disintegrated, and crews abandoned their vehicles, unsure of where to turn. In less than an hour, what began as a powerful, confident spearhead had become a cage of fire, smoke, and shattered steel. Ukrainian forces had transformed the battlefield into a deadly, inescapable trap, and the invaders were only beginning to realize they had walked straight into a meticulously planned nightmare. And just when it seemed the enemy might find a foothold, Ukraine prepared the finishing blow, an encirclement designed to crush what remained of the advancing forces. While the northern spearhead floundered, the southern front was collapsing just as violently. Chinese landing craft had reached the beaches of Mariupol, but the moment troops stepped into the surf, the trap snapped shut. Hidden bunkers beneath sand dunes erupted with fire, javelins, anti-tank systems, and precision rifles tore through the advancing Marines. The first missile punched through a Type 726 hovercraft, flipping it into flames across the shallow surf. Within minutes, 5 vessels burned, casting a fiery reflection over the Black Sea. Those Marines who survived the initial strike found themselves trapped in open, exposed terrain. Ukrainian snipers picked them off with surgical precision, while every attempt to regroup was met with an unrelenting barrage from hidden positions. Rifles, gear, and bodies littered the sand as chaos spread along the shoreline. Communication and radar systems had been neutralized by kamikaze drones, leaving the attackers blind and disoriented. The skies above were effectively a dead zone, where every movement could mean instant death. As panic rippled through the southern forces, Ukrainian special units coordinated with artillery and drones inland. Bayraktar TB2S circled overhead, marking targets for GPS-guided howitzers, while mechanized infantry and motorcycle units cut off any potential escape routes. Fuel trucks and landing craft became fireballs, igniting secondary explosions that sent waves of heat and smoke across the beach. Within an hour, the southern assault had been utterly shattered. Over 70 armored vehicles destroyed, dozens of enemy troops killed or incapacitated, and hundreds captured. The Chinese gamble on the Black Sea had failed, and the Ukrainian defenders held every key to the battlefield. And yet, amid the wreckage and chaos, humanity persisted. Soldiers moved through the smoke, offering water and aid to captured Marines. A quiet reminder that even in the deadliest of battles, compassion endured. With both northern and southern fronts trapped, battered, and burning, Ukraine was ready to deliver the final, decisive strike, the blow that would seal this meticulously executed ambush. By now, the battlefield was a furnace of fire, smoke, and chaos. Russian armor in the north was trapped in burning fields, Chinese Marines on the southern beaches pinned under relentless fire. Ukraine's plan had already shredded the invaders' cohesion, but the final blow was about to be delivered. From concealed positions, mortar teams dialed in coordinates relayed by orbiting UAVs. Tubes thundered in rapid cadence, sending GPS-guided shells onto the last firing points of trapped tanks and BMPs. Each explosion drove the enemy closer to the center of the kill zone, herding disoriented crews into the tightest possible pocket. Attempts to escape only met new waves of fire from infantry, bikers, and armored units moving with deadly precision. Motorcycle assault teams wove through wrecks, closing gaps and cutting off retreat. Armed with RPGs, anti-tank missiles, and heavy machine guns, they struck with terrifying speed. Supply trucks were ignited, fuel cells detonated, and vehicles collided in the chaos. Every movement inside the encirclement was tracked by reconnaissance drones, feeding real-time targeting data to Ukrainian forces. The final phase was surgical. Infantry advanced using destroyed BMPs and T-92s as cover, tightening the noose. Tank crews abandoned vehicles under the impression that artillery strikes were incoming. Radios crackled with desperate calls for orders that would never come. The invaders, cut off from support, had nowhere to turn. Within minutes, the kill zone shrank to a fraction of its original size. Smoke rose hundreds of feet, blackening the morning sky. The remaining enemy resistance fractured. Platoons surrendered, soldiers raised white flags, and the last pockets of defense were extinguished with coordinated precision. By the end of the operation, less than 95 minutes after the first attack, the battlefield lay still. Over 29 armored vehicles destroyed, 140 enemy troops dead, another 180 captured, and hundreds of rifles and ammunition seized. What began as a confident offensive had been reduced to chaos, proving that strategy, coordination, and ingenuity could defeat even overwhelming firepower. And amid the wreckage, Ukrainian soldiers tended to the wounded, offering water and aid. A reminder that even in the deadliest of victories, humanity endured. The sun rose over Mariupol and Semenivka, black smoke twisting into the sky, signaling a triumph that would resonate far beyond the battlefield. By now, the battlefield was a furnace of fire, smoke, and chaos. Russian armor in the north was trapped in burning fields, Chinese Marines on the southern beaches pinned under relentless fire. Ukraine's plan had already shredded the invaders' cohesion, but the final blow was about to be delivered. From concealed positions, mortar teams dialed in coordinates relayed by orbiting UAVs. Tubes thundered in rapid cadence, sending GPS-guided shells onto the last firing points of trapped tanks and BMPs. Each explosion drove the enemy closer to the center of the kill zone, herding disoriented crews into the tightest possible pocket. Attempts to escape only met new waves of fire from infantry, bikers, and armored units moving with deadly precision. Motorcycle assault teams wove through wrecks, closing gaps and cutting off retreat. Armed with RPGs, anti-tank missiles, and heavy machine guns, they struck with terrifying speed. Supply trucks were ignited, fuel cells detonated, and vehicles collided in the chaos. Every movement inside the encirclement was tracked by reconnaissance drones, feeding real-time targeting data to Ukrainian forces. The final phase was surgical. Infantry advanced using destroyed BMPs and T-92s as cover, tightening the noose. Tank crews abandoned vehicles under the impression that artillery strikes were incoming. Radios crackled with desperate calls for orders that would never come. The invaders, cut off from support, had nowhere to turn. Within minutes, the kill zone shrank to a fraction of its original size. Smoke rose hundreds of feet, blackening the morning sky. The remaining enemy resistance fractured. Platoons surrendered, soldiers raised white flags, and the last pockets of defense were extinguished with coordinated precision. By the end of the operation, less than 95 minutes after the first attack, the battlefield lay still. Over 29 armored vehicles destroyed, 140 enemy troops dead, another 180 captured, and hundreds of rifles and ammunition seized. What began as a confident offensive had been reduced to chaos, proving that strategy, coordination, and ingenuity could defeat even overwhelming firepower. And amid the wreckage, Ukrainian soldiers tended to the wounded, offering water and aid. A reminder that even in the deadliest of victories, humanity endured. The sun rose over Mariupol and Semenivka, black smoke twisting into the sky, signaling a triumph that would resonate far beyond the battlefield.